You're listening to HowStreet.com radio, available online at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. Welcome to HowStreet.com radio, the online source for market opinions. Here is Jim Goddard.
My guest is David Smith, Senior Analyst for the Morgan Report, which you can find online at silver-investor.com. Welcome to the show, David.
Hello, Jim. Glad to be back.
Palladium is still taking a sky ride, it seems. The last time I checked the price, it was $8.13. And the charts show, as most charts do, a bumpy ride, but the overall trend is upward. It's just been tremendous on palladium lately.
So far, the trend remains up, even though as we speak today, all the metals are in a sharp retreat. But the volatility is here to stay, and we're going to see more of the same. And that's something that we've discussed for several years that on this show, that as prices move higher, they're going to become more volatile in both directions. And I don't think anybody can accurately predict on a daily or an intraday basis how prices are going to go. So they have to have a premise, do their research, and then when they've taken their position and put in their stop losses or however they want to deal with it, they have to stick with that because they can't be torn back and forth as these waves of fear and greed surge over the market and even over them.
And as you said, we've talked about this in the past, about sticking to your investment principles. Maybe outline what those should be.
Well, you know, there's a quote that really sticks in my mind that I ran across a few months ago, and I put it in a report I wrote recently and attributed to Eric Sprott, and he says, if you believe you're right and the data says hold your ground, you hold your ground. Normally there's a pretty big payday at the end. And I thought, you know, I've read what he's written for a number of years. I've listened to him speak on a number of occasions. I've had the privilege of meeting him a couple of times. And I thought, you know, that's one of the most powerful things that he ever said in my view. You do your work, you do your research, you take a position, and if you believe it's the correct one, you don't let yourself be scared out or worn out, as David Morgan says, when the market goes back and forth with those big waves of fear and greed that wash over all of us. And none of us are immune to it, but the only way we can survive in those markets is to control it and stick with what we believe is correct. And if you are in alignment with your belief structure, you'll operate appropriately. But if you don't believe what you're trying to do, it's really tough to be successful.
Yeah, in other words, you're arguing with yourself, and those arguments never end well either way, do they?
That's really exactly right, and I read these things that people write in the chat rooms occasionally, and I find that most of the time they really seem to be talking to themselves, not with others, not seeking a greater understanding of information. And, you know, when I thought about what Eric said this morning preparatory to us speaking, I thought about a number of people that I've followed over the years, and there are others that I could mention, but some of the names that come to mind, and these are people that often went against the prevailing wisdom, and sometimes they were heavily criticized for it. And, you know, Eric has been in that camp as well, too. But they stick with what they believe is right, and after a period of time, they just quit having big interactions with people that disagree with them. It's not that they don't want to hear disagreement. It's just that they don't want to be taken away emotionally from what they believe is right by spending a lot of time in useless chatter beyond, principled discussion. And I think of Sir John Templeton, who was ridiculed in 1999 and 2000 when he went short on 100 stocks that he believed were vastly overvalued. He was proven right. He made an immense fortune to add to his already large fortune. I think of Robert Friedland when he was pursuing work in Mongolia, and the Oyu Tolgoi operation was on his last drill hole, and what he's doing in South Africa today. I mean, these people are really driven to follow what they believe is right, and they get input from the outside, but at the same point they listen to themselves ultimately and finally because they've done deep reflection and deep research to arrive at their conclusions. I think of people like Ross Beatty and Pan American Silver, how he built that company and several others over the last decade, and Bob Quartermain at Silver Standard, and has moved on now to this Pretium deposit, his Pretium company up in BC. I think of Rick Rule, another giant who, again, does deep reflection and then follows through on what he believes is the right way to go. I am a couple of people that really I respect a lot that are in an operation that in a way indirectly competes with the Morgan Report, but certainly on a very friendly basis and on a basis that I think we all learn from each other on. And two people that stand out in my mind there other than Doug Casey, who's the giant of his Casey research, would be Marion Katusa and Louis James. You know, they both, again, operate after having deeply reflected and researched something, and then they stick with their guns, and they do so in a real quiet manner that is not obstreperous and is not argumentative. And if people get argumentative with them, they just don't send that energy back. They just keep going forward with what they truly believe. And, of course, for me, I've had the greater privilege for working for well over a decade with David Morgan, and I find that he is definitely in that group of select individuals as well, too. And he does the research. He operates from a best basis of prior knowledge, and he's humble about it. He never says, I know I'm right, but when he feels he's right, he sticks with that until the information in a fundamental way would cause him to change his view. And, also something from the movies which always has had a big hold on me. I think of the movie in the Star Wars trilogy, or actually I guess there's more than 3 of them now, but where Luke Skywalker was in the very first one. He was going in to fire his missile into the Death Star, and all around him, the people that he was on his side were being shot out of the sky because they were being picked up on radar by the Death Star. And he heard in his voice Obi-Wan Kenobi, his master teacher, saying, Luke, turn off your computer. And he did that, and he was able to successfully complete the mission. And he did it because at some point he realized he'd done all he could to research, to take his position, and the only thing left was now, since he believed in what he was doing was right, was to simply follow that effort by not making any effort, really, by letting the market determine if he was correct or not. And I think that is a very powerful message that the movie and that all the people, and a number more that I have not mentioned, follow in their own trading lives.
David, it was interesting, that long list of noted individuals that you respect. They've all been guests of mine on This Week in Money. And I think there's a mutual respect that goes out to all of them. And even if they have a contrary position with the other person, they both seem to be successful if they start comparing notes. They may have arrived at the conclusion a different way, but they still came to the same conclusion.
That's a really powerful observation that you made, Jim, and I think that's the bottom line for all these people, is that they have a great respect for other people and other views. They feel that they're right on something, but they don't have to get there by being disrespectful to other people or trying to tear down the other person's argument. They simply pursue their own belief in a way that is respectful of others, but also is very focused and with great energy and forcefulness moving forward. And when many, if not most of the articles that I've had the privilege of writing for David Morgan and contributing to the Morgan Report, I usually close my reports this way, with 3 little sentences. Do the research, do the math, the decision must be yours, ! And I would modify that in relationship to the people we're talking about today. I think they do the same thing. And here's the way I would state it from them, not to put words in their mouth, but this is the energy I get from studying them and speaking with them. They do the research, they do the math, and they realize that the decision must be theirs. And that's ultimately where it really rests. If you are willing and able to take responsibility for the decisions you make in the investment field or in any other aspect of life, right or wrong, if you take that responsibility, that's a crucial piece that you must, as an individual, be able to do in order to have long-term success and fulfillment in the market or indeed in any other aspect of your life.
Thanks a lot for chatting with us, David.
You bet, Jim. Have a great day.
You too. My guest has been David Smith, Senior Analyst for the Morgan Report, which you can find online at silver-investor.com. You're listening to HowStreet.com radio. Find us on Twitter on Talk Digital Net. You can contact us at info@HowStreet.com. I'm Jim Goddard.